within ourselves, we also have Atzilus. We also have the Ben within ourselves. Even though all of us are neshamas of Iyar, we also have superconsciously the perspective and the reality of Atzilus, of Ben, and we are discussing how is it in reference to Elokus, to Or Ein Sof. Good morning, good morning. Today is Tes Zayin Iyar. We are in Hemshech Samech Vov, the Maimar Vayolech Havaye Es Hayam, page Reach, and the main, which means Resh Yud Ches, which is Kuf Samach Daled in the old edition. And we are in the main paragraph, Omnam Adayin Tzarich Lehavin, 5 lines down, the last word of the line Ubifrat. And now we are Bifrat Lefi Ma Shekatuv B'makom Acher. So to bring us back into this intricate discussion about Olam HaAtzilus, the world of Atzilus, the Rebbe is going now back and forth regarding the question whether Olam HaAtzilus, in comparison to, first we began in comparison to the Adam Kadmon, and then we included the Kav, whether Atzilus is Gilui HaHelem, and Gilui HaHelem up to what? Or it's Yesh Me'ayin, because it says HaChochma Me'ayin Timatzeh. And the main thing of Atzilus is Sfiras HaChochma. So the last things that we learned is, or kind of concluded, and I warned you, don't conclude anything in a way of cementing it, because the Rebbe will go into a deep pilpul about it. But we did understand that in the meantime, the conclusion was that Atzilus is a chidush yesh me'ayin in comparison to Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum. But it is Gilui HaHelem of Adam Kadmon and the Kav after the Tzimtzum. Then the Rebbe asked a question. We know that Or HaKav itself, so if we say that Atzilus is Gilui HaHelem to Or HaKav, of Or HaKav, Or HaKav is Me'ein HaMa'or. The light of the Kav should be a reflection of the luminary, of the source, before the Tzimtzum. So you have to say that Or HaKav, which is in many ways it is similar to Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum. And if this is the case, if the Kav is similar to the Ma'or, to Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum, it's not Yesh Me'ayin, it's Gilui HaHelem. And if the Kav is Gilui HaHelem from the Or Ein Sof, then Atzilus is also Gilui HaHelem from Or Ein Sof, because Atzilus is Gilui HaHelem of the Kav. So if this is the case, Sfiras HaChochma as well, and the whole world of Atzilus, that are resembling and Megale Or HaKav, they are only Gilui HaHelem beyachas to Or Makiv, to the Sovev, to the Or Ein Sof. So still, how is it called Yesh Me'ayin? Atzilus Yesh Me'ayin. It looks like it's Gilui HaHelem. So there was an attempt, so to speak, to explain it, which was rejected, that no. You cannot say that Or HaKav is Gilui HaHelem of Or Ein Sof because it went through the Tzimtzum. And the Tzimtzum changes things drastically. That means that after the Tzimtzum, one way to look at it, the Or HaKav loses or doesn't receive from its shoresh the tchuna, the quality of bli gvul. Now it is subjected to the inyan of gvul. So if this is the case, you cannot say that Or HaKav is Gilui HaHelem to the Or HaSobeb, to the Or Ein Sof, before the Tzimtzum. But this was rejected. Why? It was rejected because the Rebbe brought the Eitz Chaim. And the Eitz Chaim says that Achar HaTzimtzum, how did the Kelim come to be? Anything come to be? How did worlds come to be? So the Eitz Chaim says that first, okay, there was a Tzimtzum. But Achar HaTzimtzum, המשיך מן אור אין סוף קו אחד ישר מן אור העיגול שלו. After the Tzimtzum, there was one line drawn from Or Ein Sof, from the light of the eagle, which means from the light of the Sobeb, the Or Ein Sof. And then the Eitz Chaim says, the ראש העליון של הקו נמשך מן האור אין סוף עצמו ונוגע בו. And therefore you should know, says the Eitz Chaim, in the name of the Arizal, that the top end of the Kav is coming out of the Ein Sof itself and touches it. Which means you shouldn't think that the Tzimtzum disconnected the Kav from its source. So Or HaKav, what does the Eitz Chaim teach us? He teaches us that Or HaKav is not coming from the Tzimtzum itself. Rather, that after the Tzimtzum, which means after Hashem concealed his infinite light, Chazar ve'eir, that's the Lashon of Kabbalah, that Or Ein Sof returned and shined again. That Or HaBli Gvul shined again. But it shined how? Now it's shining through the Koach HaGvul, through the power of finitude, of limitation. And that is, what's the result of that? Or HaKav. So what do you find? As the Eitz Chaim says that the top end of the Or HaKav touches the eagle of before the Tzimtzum. What does it mean that the Or HaKav, let's go a little bit, I went back a little bit, but let's review just to understand it more. If it touches the Or, Yesh Me'ayin creates a separation. The Yesh feels separate from the source. This, on the contrary, it's Gilui HaHelem. If the Kav touches the source, then it could be Ila and Alul or whatever it would be. If it touches and there's no separation, it's not Yesh Me'ayin. Yesh Me'ayin is something new that doesn't recognize its source. But in this case, the Eitz Chaim says no. It touches the eagle, it touches Or Ein Sof. There's no separation. Then it should be Gilui HaHelem. So what does it mean the Or HaKav went through the Tzimtzum? It means that it took on another thing. It took on the Ratzon HaElyon, the divine Ratzon, the divine will, to have Oilamos, to have worlds that are finite. And therefore, what shines in Or HaKav? In Or HaKav shines the divine will to create finite worlds. And therefore, Or HaKav, the light of the Kav, is helping with the power of Gvul, which it possesses, the power of Gvul. We learned originally that Or Ein Sof has two powers, the powers of finitude and the power of infinity. So Or HaKav, definitely what dominates in Or HaKav is the power of finitude. But how does it create? How does it create? With the power of finitude, one cannot create with the power of finitude alone. Why? Because the power of finitude is the power to hold back, to restrain, to metzamtzem. So how can you create a keli? You cannot create anything only with the power of gvul, only with tzimtzum. You need the power of bli gvul, which is kol yachol, is bli gvul, has no limitations. You need that to now come back as chazar ve'ir, as the Eitz Chaim says, return and shine, the power of bli gvul to now function again and operate again, now through the power of gvul. And that can create kelim. That can create worlds. That can emanate spheros. So it's true that this suggestion that the answer why it's yesh me'ayin and not gilu ha'helem is because of the tzimtzum. So it's not a trivial answer. It's a legitimate answer from a certain perspective. Why it is legitimate? Because there is a chidush in Or HaKav that wasn't there before. And that what was just said, that it's Or HaKav, which originally is part of Or Ein Sof, and therefore just wants to reveal godliness in an unlimited way. That's the nature of light, of Or. And if it's Or of the Ein Sof, the Or also will be Ein Sof. So the original nature of Or Ein Sof, the infinite light of God, is to reveal everything, to reveal what God is. Now, after the Tzimtzum, there is a chidush in Or HaKav. What's the chidush? That it is now intending to do things that are against its nature. Its original nature is to reveal godliness in an unlimited way, in an authentic way, which means no bli gvul. Now it has to go against its nature and create finite worlds. So that's a chidush. That could be why it's yesh me'ayin, because now this Or is functioning against its own nature. Nevertheless, the Rebbe is answering that this is not the full truth. Why? Because how, as we just said, how is the Kav able to actually create kelim? It cannot create kelim just with the power of gvul, as we just said, because the power of gvul just holds back. It cannot create. It can hold back. It can bring in the element of finitude, of finiteness, but it cannot create. For that you need the Or of bli gvul. And therefore the actual ability of Or HaKav to create, the Rebbe teaches us, comes from the fact that it is actually a bli gvul light. That's the truth of the Or HaKav. That the essence of Or HaKav is Or bli gvul, bilti mugbal. And therefore it's self-understood that if the Kav will be severed, so to speak, disconnected from its source, it will lose its koyach, which is bli gvul, and therefore it will also lose its ability to create finite kelim. Because without the power of bli gvul that can do anything, including creating kelim, nothing can be created. There will be just black hole. So, that now we understand why the Eitz Chaim is making a point to say that the Kav is touching the Igul, is touching the Or Ein Sof. And that's really what its true nature is. And so, since the Or HaKav is nimshach from Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum, now you understand why it's not a Chidush Yesh Me'ayin. Because Chidush Yesh Me'ayin calls for separation from the source. And here is the Eitz Chaim tells us it's not separate. It's nogea, it's touching, connected. So therefore you have to say that Or HaKav is not Yesh Me'ayin. It's Gilui HaHelem from the Or Ein Sof. And if this is the case, we learned before that Atzilus is Gilui HaHelem of the Kav. And if the Kav is Gilui HaHelem from Or Ein Sof, then Atzilus is also not Yesh Me'ayin. Atzilus is also Gilui HaHelem from Or Ein Sof. So how come it says that V'chochma me'ayin timatzeh? Going back to the original question, how can be Atzilus called Yesh Me'ayin? If we just figure out that B, we have A, B, C, Atzilus, Kav, and the Igul before the Tzimtzum. A, B, C. We just showed, the Eitz Chaim tells us that B and C are connected. Nogea. So B is Gilui HaHelem from C. But we learned that A is Gilui HaHelem from B. So if A is Gilui HaHelem from B, and B is Gilui HaHelem from C, then A is Gilui HaHelem from C. Atzilus should be Gilui HaHelem from Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum. He's saying that really, so far, from what the Eitz Chaim says, from wherever you look, it's Gilui HaHelem, because they are connected, whether from up down or from down up. So we still have to resolve the fact that it's Yesh Me'ayin. The fact that the Kav now is revealing, is operating with respect to Or HaGvul, then the Kav is Yesh Me'ayin. Because what we are saying is that you can separate the two. Why you cannot separate the two? Because nothing can be created, no keli can be created just with the power of Gvul. What really creates? The Gvul, kelim, actual world, spheres, whatever level you want to start. So that's Or Gvul. On one hand, we are saying nothing can be created without them being connected. That's what the Eitz Chaim says. So that's only Gilui HaHelem. Nothing is new here. There is no change that justifies saying that the Kav is Yesh Me'ayin. You want to know when the separation starts? In Adam Kadmon. Then there is a beginning of a keli, actual keli. That's the first time that until Adam Kadmon, the Or and the keli are one. By Adam Kadmon, there is beginning. Yesterday we mentioned that. Yes. By Adam Kadmon, the beginning of the separation. There's the first time there's a separation between Or and Kli, between light and vessel. But the situation of the vessel in Adam Kadmon is complete bittul to the light. In Akudim, there is already no bittul, there is already a keli. The keli is not disappearing in the light, not battle to the light, but it's only one keli to 10 lights. They are all still in the keli of oneness. It's only one keli. And then in Tohu you have 10 kelim, and in Tikkun we have the way the kelim are expanding. Okay, Atzilus. But here, the point that the Rebbe says is that we cannot separate the Kav from its source, and therefore it should be Gilui HaHelem and not Yesh Me'ayin. And if this is the case, Atzilus is also Gilui HaHelem from the Or Gvul before the Tzimtzum. And now the Rebbe will give a little bit even deeper explanation to that. And this is where we are holding. Listen, this is learning Chassidus, like on a serious level, And if it will be really serious if we all reviewed and reviewed and reviewed till we can give over this discussion, the whole discussion balpeh. We have the whole picture. What's the question? What's the attempt to answer? How it is not accepted, and going back and forth until we can give over this whole Hasidic pilpul regarding the way we view the world of Atzilus, whether it is Yesh Me'ayin or Gilui HaHelem, and that's connected with the two types of Neshamos and two types of Avodas Hashem, Avodas Ben and Avodas Eved. Avodas Ben is the Neshamos of Atzilus, and Avodas Eved is the Neshamos of Biyah. But it's not that we are, again, it's not, you can discuss, is it Yesh Me'ayin one and the other, or Gilui HaHelem? Because within ourselves, we also have Atzilus. We also have the Ben within ourselves. Even though all of us are Neshamos of Biyah, we also have superconsciously the perspective and the reality of Atzilus, of Ben, and we are discussing how it is and how is it in reference to Elokus, to Or Ein Sof. Anyhow, let's continue to learn, Bezrat Hashem. Ubifrat, we're learning together. Ubifrat lefi ma shekasuv b'makom acher, de'ofen hamshachas hakav hu, especially according to what it says elsewhere, that the manner, the way the kav comes up is nimshach, is שאחר הצמצום וההסעלמוס האור, that after the tzimtzum and הסעלמוס האור, we have, regarding the tzimtzum harishon, we have generally three types of tzimtzumim. We have the tzimtzum harishon, we have parsa, and we have tzimtzumim of seder ishtalshelus. Tzimtzum harishon, well, let's start with the other two and not get into them. The parsa is a tzimtzum that creates a distance between the outcome and the source. It's like a yesh me'ayin. It's a tzimtzum that creates a shinui hamahus, a change of the nature of the light. Then the tzimtzumim of the seder ishtalshelus, that's number 3, are tzimtzumim that are basically reducing the light. That's very general, okay? Now let's go back to tzimtzum harishon. Tzimtzum harishon is called his'almus ha'or. We are learning a little bit, we're not rushing, okay? So tzimtzum harishon is called his'almus ha'or, that the whole Or Ein Sof was nis'alem, was concealed. What does it mean? The nature of Or is to be bitul to the Ma'or. Agree? The nature of Or is to be completely battled to the Ma'or. If there's no, Or doesn't have its own Yeshus. Right? The nature of Or is it doesn't have its own Yeshus. It doesn't say, look at me, look at me. It says, look at my source. And if in one moment you separate the two, it disappears. It doesn't have its own Metzius. Completely battled to its source. And all it does, it reflects its source. That was the initial state of Or Ein Sof. A total reflection of the infinite, of its source. That's it. So now, Hashem wanted to conceal, to create a halal, to conceal the light. So there will be a beginning of a possibility of worlds to come about. So you know what he did to the light? He took away the power, the bittul of the light to the source. He took away the bittul of the light to its source. When he took away the bittul of the light to its source, now the light begins to have a Yeshus. Oh, I'm a light. I'm sorry, I'm describing it in such a funny way. In order, which means that the nature of the light is to be really included in its source. So in order for the light to shine, Hashem has to remove its bittul. Hashem has to take away the bittul of the light to its source, right? And then the light will shine. It will not be just disappearing in its source, it will shine. Why? Because Hashem took away its bittul to its source. If he didn't, the light would disappear into the source. What happened when Hashem wanted to create the Tzimtzum HaRishon? That means his almus ha'or, that the or is gone, became concealed. Where did he put it? In Algeria? Where did he put the light? He brought back the bittul of the light. When he brought back the bittul of the light to its source, the light disappeared in its source. Back to its source. That's his almus ha'or. The or was this alem back to its source. Why? Because Hashem brought back the bittul of the light to its source, and now it doesn't shine anymore. It goes back. Oh, I can go back home. That the gilui of Or and Sof is not there, and now a reality that has another perspective can be created. That was the purpose of the Tzimtzum. Which we're talking about the first Tzimtzum. Just okay. I'm learning together about different Tzimtzumim and what is the first Tzimtzum. The first Tzimtzum is called this almus ha'or. It's a complete removal of the light. But what do you mean removed? Where was it? Where did Hashem put it? So I'm just explaining you the spiritual mechanism here. That the nature of light is to be in its source. In order to shine, to have its own revelation, to be revealed, Hashem has to take away this bittul. And now the light is shining. So that was the condition before the Tzimtzum. And therefore, the Bli Gvul was dominant. Because the light, when it shines, what does it reveal? It reveals the Bli Gvuling of Hashem, of the Ma'or, of the source. Now Hashem wanted to conceal this light, because as long as Or and Sof is revealed, nothing that is close to finitude can come about. And Hashem wants worlds, finite worlds. So Hashem had to conceal this light, this infinite light. What does it mean? How did he do it? He brought back the bittul to the light. So the light said, oh, I can go back home, bye. And went back into its source. And that is called this almus ha'or, that the or now is concealed. Okay? Good. Shezehu inyan harichuk. This tzimtzum is creating a richuk. Right? A sense of separation, a distance between the Or and the Ma'or. Or between the source and what will come about after, which means eventually worlds. But the Rebbe is teaching us, this is what the Tzimtzum was. The Tzimtzum was to create a distance from Or and Sof, because from the infinite, because he cannot create finite without creating a distance, a richuk from the infinite. You have to create some kind of a separation. And that's in order for one to stop and for one to start, so to speak. That's what the Tzimtzum did. But it only enabled the possibility that eventually worlds will come about. But worlds cannot come about just from the Tzimtzum itself, because the nature of the Tzimtzum is just to conceal. Ma'alim. His almus haor, not to reveal, to conceal. And therefore, achar hatzimtzum, the Rebbe is teaching us, nimshach achar kach liyos bivchinas kiruv kolo. First, there was like a distance, but then, after that, a closeness was recreated. How so? Vahainu, I'm translating and then we'll explain. Vahainu, meaning, the bishvil hamshachas hakav, in order to extend a kav, to draw a kav after the tzimtzum, hayat nu'ah hofchis me'atzimtzum hakodem. There has to be an opposite motion, an opposite direction to the tzimtzum, because the tzimtzum was ma'alim, right, was concealing. Now we want to create a light of kav. In order to do so, you have to do something opposite than the tzimtzum if you want to megale the kav. Because the tzimtzum is inyan siluk haor. The tzimtzum is to remove the light. But in order to reveal the kav, is ve'achar kach chazar ve'nimshach haor. That after that, returned. The light of Ein Sof returned and was drawn out. Hainu, be'or Ein Sof shelifnei hatzimtzum. Which means that Or Ein Sof before the tzimtzum returned to shine again, chazar ve'e'ir, bichdei shiyeh hamshachas hakav kulu. In order for the kav to be drawn out. Rabbi Gopin explains like this. When we first rejected that the kav should be called yesh me'ayin because of the tzimtzum, it was explained that or kav, that chazar ve'e'ir, that the Or Ein Sof really returned and shined. That means what? That the Or bli gvul returned, but now, which means the power, the light of infinity returned, because without that we can't create anything, right? We already understand that. But now it operates through the power of gvul, through the light of gvul, through the power of limitation. And so that means that now that the or habilti mugbal, that or that is not limited, is now included in the tzimtzum and in the gvul. And now it can be poal, as Ruchama says, actually create kelim and metzius the way the tzimtzum is intended to, that it should be limited finite worlds. But we did learn that without the or habli gvul, without the infinite light, the tzimtzum cannot create anything, right? The tzimtzum can only ma'alim, can only conceal. It cannot create. In order for anything to be created, you need the or habli gvul. You need the unlimited light to shine again through the power of gvul. And this is what generally is explained in Hasidus. Okay, here is getting deeper into the details of the pilpul. That this is the usual explanation in Hasidus, meaning that when it says in Eitz Chaim that Or HaKav chazar ve'e'ir, returned and shined after the tzimtzum, that means that now we have chazar ve'e'ir whom chazar ve'e'ir, Or habli gvul, Or habilti mugbal. But now when it's returned and shined, that means now the Or habli gvul is shining in a way that is included in the power of gvul. It has to be compromised. It has to be operating according to the dictation of the power of gvul. That enables, that makes it happen that worlds will be finite. But now the Rebbe will bring, and Rabbi Gopin points out to a maimar from Tafresh Samech Aleph from the Rebbe Rashab, that there he explains a great chidush. The great chidush is another way, another perspective to look in another depth to understand Or HaKav. That when there the Rebbe Rashab explains that when the Arizal teaches us through the Reb Chaim Vital in Etz Chaim that the Or HaKav Chazar Ve'Iyar returned and was shining from Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum, doesn't mean that now that Or will be totally subjugated to the power of Gvul. You need to understand it in a deeper level. And that means that when it says Chazar Ve'Iyar, it is the same Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum is Chazar, returned Ve'Iyar, not the way it is included in the Tzimtzum. Rather, it is revealed again now the way it was before the Tzimtzum. Not in order to create the Yesh, but in order to Megale Elokus even after the Tzimtzum, and to effect that there should be Bitul HaYesh in the world that are created. You understand now the Rebbe added another dimension to understand the purpose of Or HaKav. One thing is that Or HaKav, there is a mechanism of the Or of infinity operating through the Or HaGvul, the Or of the power of finitude, so we can create finite spheres, finite worlds, scaling, and so on, and worlds. Right? That's one thing. But the Rebbe says, no, you have to understand that there is another aspect to this Or HaKav that is deeper than that. That when the Etz Chaim says that Chazar Ve'Iyar, no, it's not that it's not anymore the Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum. Now it's something new because it's operating through the Keli, through the power of Gvul. No, it's the same infinite, the same Gilui Elokus that was in Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum. Chazar Ve'Iyar, returning to shine. Meaning what? Its agenda is not to create the Yesh. Its agenda really, its innermost agenda is to reveal Elokus in the Yesh. And therefore it's the same Or Ein Sof that Chazar Ve'Iyar. Meaning that the Or HaKav, the pnimius of Or HaKav, the intent of Or HaKav is really to Megale Elokus, to reveal godliness in the physical world, in the finite or in the finite worlds, including and all the way to the physical world, and therefore to effect a bitul in the world, a connection to God, and a submission to God, and a wish to align themselves with God. That means what? Now, before we could understand in the previous explanation, we can understand that Or HaKav is kind of cooperating with the Tzimtzum. And now Or HaKav is going to create finite realities because of the Tzimtzum, and it cooperates with the Tzimtzum. Now we are discovering, based on Samech Aleph of the Rebbe Rashab, now we are discovering that Or HaKav really operates contrary to the Tzimtzum. Or HaKav, its agenda is really to Megale Elokus in these worlds. So if the agenda of the Tzimtzum is Tzimtzum and Helem, is to conceal, the agenda of the Kav is really to reveal. Surely, Rabbi Gopin is explaining here that the Or HaKav doesn't really return completely to its previous condition, the way it was before the Tzimtzum, because then again we would have a problem that they wouldn't be possibility for worlds to exist in the reality of revealed infinity. On the contrary, the purpose of the Kav is, the agenda of the Kav is that within the worlds, that mitzad their teva, they are hiding, they are concealing Elokus, the opposite will happen. If the nature of the world, that's the meaning of the word, the word olam, world in Hebrew, is concealment, means concealment. So in the opposite of the nature of the worlds to conceal Elokus should shine. But it should shine, as we call in the beginning 90s, ba'ofen hamiskabel. It should be shine in a way that it will not cause the worlds to lose their metzius, rather that the world should be able to integrate it and to align themselves and to be battled to Elokus. So what do we find from this? That not only the way the Orakav, not only that the Orakav operates in a way that it touches and it's connected to its source in Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum. So not only that it needs the Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum in order to operate, but the operation is in a gvul. No, even the direction that the Orakav is operating towards, which means Gilui Elokus, is nogea and is connected to Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum, which means the Or Ein Sof, the only agenda of Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum is Gilui Elokus without any restraint. And as long as without any restraint, that the finite worlds couldn't exist. So there have to be a Tzimtzum of the infinite light, and now the Orakav enables that it will be worlds, finite worlds, so considering the power of Gvul, and so on and so forth. But what's the ultimate agenda? Exactly an extension of Or Ein Sof before Tzimtzum, legalos Elokus, to megala Elokus. But now the Gilui is done gradually and through a process of refinement and Torah mitzvahs and so on, until the worlds are all ready. And more Elokus is misgala in the worlds. That means that the Orakav, in that sense, is close to, is not distant from its Shoresh. It shares the same agenda. It's not chidush yesh me'ayin. It does the same thing that Or Ein Sof does, to megala Elokus. So from alle Seiten, either you say that it is using Or Ein Sof, it is Or Ein Sof that actually creates, because without it, nothing can be created. With just the power of Tzimtzum, nothing can come about. Or you go even further according to today's teaching, and you learn that the agenda of the Kav is not just to enable a Yesh. The agenda of the Kav is really to bring Elokus into the Yesh and to create a bitul in the Yesh. And according to this, is understood that Orakav is really close to its Shoresh, to its makor, to its source, and is not a chidush yesh me'ayin. So we have a question again. How is Chochma of Atzilus, which is the Gilui ha'elem of the Kav, called yesh me'ayin in relation to Or Ein Sof that is infinite? So we go back to the question, if A, Atzilus, is resembling B, and now we learn that B is resembling C, then A is resembling C, it's not yesh me'ayin from C. So to summarize, and then it's your platform, why the world of Atzilus is a chidush yesh me'ayin in comparison to Or HaSobeb kol Almin? Isn't it that Or HaKav is me'ein ha'maor? It's similar to the Maor. And in Or HaKav itself, there are qualities of bli gvul. Or HaKav is still infinite. So even Sfiras HaChochma, which is similar to Or HaKav, which means Atzilus is Gilui ha'elem and similar to Or HaKav, should be also me'ein ha'maor. So Atzilus should also be me'ein ha'maor if the Kav is me'ein ha'maor. And why it says Chochma me'ayin timatzeh. So there were three explanations, three possibilities regarding the relation between Or HaKav that goes through the Tzimtzum and Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum. The first one is that through the Tzimtzum, now Or HaKav, that's the first thing, when the Rebbe brought the Tzimtzum, that's why, because of the Tzimtzum is Yesh Me'ayin now, and not Giloi Elem. Why? Because through the Tzimtzum, now Or HaKav is Rachok, because Tzimtzum is Almus HaOr, now Or HaOr is far, there is a Richuk, a disconnect, so to speak. Means Be'ein Aroch, an incomparability is created, a leap, a gap, from Or Ein Sof, and that is the Chidush Yesh Me'ayin. That's the possible answer. And this answer, and because of the Tzimtzum, is the Chidush Yesh Me'ayin. You can, because Or HaKav came from the Tzimtzum, after the Tzimtzum, now you cannot call it Gilui HaElem anymore of Or Ein Sof, rather Yesh Me'ayin, because it created a change. And this was rejected in two ways, in two levels, if you wish. Number one, according to the first biur, the Tzimtzum, Take affect the Or HaKav, but even after the Tzimtzum, as we learn from Eitz Chaim, the Kav is nogea, touches and attached to Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum. And therefore, you cannot call it Yesh Me'ayin, because in order to operate altogether, it still needs to be connected to Or Bli Gvul, otherwise nothing will be coming about. It will be one big black hole. And then the third, and which is the second rejection, which is deeper, is the second view of what is really Or HaKav is about, is Or HaKav is misgale in a manner of opposite to the Tzimtzum. Because if the Tzimtzum's agenda is to Mailim, is to conceal, Or HaKav is an extension of Or Ein Sof in the sense that it wants to reveal. It wants to reveal Elokus in the finite worlds. And in that sense, it's a hemshech to Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum. That's all its inyan is to reveal Elokus, to reveal godliness. And now the Rebbe will, next time, Yirtzeh Hashem, the Rebbe will go deep into a mashal that comes to explain the nimshal. Mashal, by the way, a mashal is an example of a tzimtzum in a way of parsa, like a curtain. The parsa, we said that we have three kinds of tzimtzumim. Tzimtzum harishon, that we spoke about it. It's mailim the or altogether, concealing the light. Then we have parsa, and then we have tzimtzumim of seder ishtalshelus, that are basically diminishing the or, decreasing the or. What is parsa? Parsa is like a curtain, that the light, when it shines through the curtain, it will change its nature. If it's a white light, it will shine through a red curtain. Now inside the room, it will be red light. And that is a tzimtzum in a way of parsa. That is shinui hamahut. That is shinui of the nature of the light, of the quality of the light. It's a qualitative change, not only quantitative change. Is a mashal to parsa. You're with me? A mashal, which means giving an analogy, a mashal, a parable or analogy, is an example, is a mashal to the parsa. Where you are giving now, the Rebbe is going to give a mashal to all this, to the inyan of Or Ein Sof, which will be the way a Rav knows a master knows something, and Oilamos will be the Talmid, and how the Rav is making a tzimtzum and then mamshich Or HaKav, so he can teach the ideas that he knows in a way that the Talmid can receive. So this mashal will explain the deeper explanation to the fact that the Arizal is saying, or the Reb Chaim Vital, that after the Tzimtzum, Chazar ve'Iyar, or from Hakav, from Or Ein Sof, that it returned and was shining from Or Ein Sof before the Tzimtzum. What will be the point there? And by this I will be listening to your comments. What will be the point here? The point will be that the Rav, in order to teach the Talmud and the level of the Talmud can relate to, he has to create a tzimtzum, which means he has to conceal the way he knows, to put away and to conceal the way he knows the subject. Because if he will give over the way he knows the subject, it will be over the head of the Talmud, of the student. So he has to make a tzimtzum. So first to mile him the whole his knowledge the way he knows it. But it's not, there are two ways to create a tzimtzum in your knowledge. One is you shut off the light and you go to sleep. You're also concealing your knowledge about anything. You go to bed, you put your head on the pillow, you close your eyes, and bye-bye. That's not what the teacher is doing, I hope. What the teacher is doing, what master is doing, he is to begin with miling his light, concealing his knowledge in order to, with the agenda to reveal it to the Talmud. That will be the depth of understanding the Kav. That is not a tzimtzum for creating, just for the sake of creating a yesh. It's a tzimtzum for creating a yesh in order to reveal a lokus in the yesh. It's a tzimtzum for the sake of gilui. And that will give us a deeper view on the Kav. So next time we'll go deeply into the mashal of a Rav and a Talmud to understand the Chazar ve'Iyar or HaKav achar HaTzimtzum, to understand it well. The idea here is to reveal the mechanism and to show how it works in terms of the transition from Or Ein Sof to worlds. But yes, the Hemshech began with the Rebbe Rashab saying in the first Maimarim that what was waiting in the Geula is not only Or Ein Sof that did shine before the Tzimtzum, which Hashem had to conceal, that will return and shine, but there will be a new Or, which is the essence of Or Ein Sof, which was never revealed yet, even before the Tzimtzum, and that is a result of Torah mitzvahs throughout the 6 millennia of the world. Himself, the way is even beyond limiting himself in any way to the world, to share himself the way he is originally, beyond even relating to us, because as Sterner says, to relate to us, he always has to come down, right? But he wants to share himself the way he's not coming down, but in our worlds. The Parsa came to create a yesh that feels itself as a metzius. The external effect of the Parsa is creating a richuk, is creating a distance, a yesh me'ayin. The main part of it is Kabbalas Ol. HaMaisa Iyar. So the Maisa, whether you're in it, of course we should have a neshama to our Yiddishkeit, and we shouldn't be robots. But the main thing is Kabbalas Ol. When the Yid is doing a mitzvah out of Kabbalas Ol, even when he is not inspired and doesn't feel like, that is Atzmus Umahus. Shem ki anaftabi. It's an interesting word, anaftabi. Anaftabi means it's a combination of you had a wrath, you poured your wrath over me and you punished me. Anafta, it's a strong word, but it's the same shorish, same letters of ni'uf, adultery. So what is adultery? Ni'uf is like not being loyal to your own. So, Otcha Hashem ki anaftabi, there were times that I felt that you betrayed me, that you deserted me, that you abandoned me, that anaftabi. You were not mine. I was not yours. At least that I didn't feel like yours. And the pele is that it's not that Otcha Hashem that you stop punishing me. It doesn't say like that. I will thank you for anaftabi, which means I will see the light of that darkness. I will see the darkness itself shining. En yira, en chokhmah, en chokhmah, en yira. What do you start with? You have to start with Yorotata, Kabbalah's Ol. There are many people who are good people and they keep good values, but they're doing it because they appreciate the value of their values. So whom are they worshipping? Worshipping themselves. I'm talking about myself. The Kabbalah's Ol is a demonstration that you worship God because of God, not because of you feel about how God should feel.